Qasem's ancestors were royal tat people, but over time, that nobility faded away. All that's left is the artistic passion running in his blood. Qasem's hands were like magic. When Maku's thread ran through them, it felt like a heavenly melody was being woven. His weaving was so delicate that people used to say Qasem's cloth could even hold the morning dew. But Qasem's life came with a strange test. His craft was flawless, but his luck was broken. He was honest, God-fearing, and hard-working. The dawn's call to prayer. Before dawn, he would already be up from sleep. After finishing the Fajr prayer, he'd head straight to his weaving room. He worked his fingers to the bone all day, but by the end of it, the little profit he made was barely enough to put food on the table. Traders didn't want to pay a fair price for the cloth he made because Qasem didn't know how to flatter them or boast about his work. He didn't know how to lie and hype up his goods. Qasem's wife, Fariha, was his only source of comfort in life. She wasn't beautiful, but there was a strange light in her heart. When Qasem came home tired and worn out, Fariha would, a glass of cold water and a piece of dry bread. She used to bring them to him with so much love that Qasem felt like he was having a royal feast. One night, sitting under the dim light of a lamp, Qasem said to Fariha, "Fariha, is the work of my hands really that worthless? People fight over cheap clothes in the market, but no one even glances at the carefully woven designs I make. Is God displeased with me?" Fariha gently placed her hand on her husband's rough hand and smiled softly. "Oh, you know God tests those he loves. Didn't Prophet Yusuf get thrown into a well? Didn't Prophet Ayub? He hadn't been sick for a long time. Maybe this lack was part of some special plan from Allah. You don't give up your honesty. The owner of sustenance isn't in the sky or on the earth." When Fariha's music played, Qasem felt a surge in his chest, but the harsh reality of the market the next day would crush him again. Qasem's neighbor, Sakin ibn Zubair, was the complete opposite. Sakin was clever, sharp, and a master of business tricks. His weaving work had no soul in it. He used cheap, low-quality threads, but then he'd coat them with bright, flashy colors that would dazzle ordinary people's eyes. On top of that, Sakin had a way of words. He would praise his products in front of customers so charmingly that people would get completely mesmerized and end up buying cloth from him. Sakin's wife, Zubaydah, wore expensive jewelry, and his dining table showed signs of luxury. But deep inside, Sakin held a dark pride. He believed all this wealth was earned purely by his own smarts. Nothing was a gift from God. He often mocked Sakin with sarcasm and ridicule. One afternoon, when Qasem, tired, was carrying a bundle of unsold cloth on his back to the market, Sakin was coming back, then sitting at someone's house where he worked, puffing on a hookah. Seeing Qasem, he laughed out loud. "Hey, Qasem," he called out, "how many coins do you have in your pouch today? Or is it just dust and sweat again?" Qasem stopped and said calmly, "Sakin, sales weren't good today, but Allah has kept me healthy, and that's something, isn't it?" Sakin sang back, "What good is health if—" Qasem looked at him and said, "I use less pure, lower quality thread than you do, but my house has golden dinars and jewels."
He's struggling. Do you know why? Because of wisdom. Allah doesn't help fools. He helps those who know how to shape their own destiny. Have you done some secret sin that's causing this drought in your livelihood? A sharp pain gripped Qasem's chest. Looking at Sakin, he just said, "Sakin, both wealth and poverty are tests from Allah. Sometimes he tests with blessings, sometimes without. My Lord knows what's best for me, and I'm content with that." Even as he said this, those words, secret sin and fool, felt like arrows piercing Qasem's heart. He stayed. That night, he came and fell into prostration, crying nonstop. He started feeling like maybe he really had failed. Maybe there was no blessing left in their work. Weeks turned into months. Qasem's situation didn't improve at all. The lenders began pressuring him. The food supplies at home were almost gone. One day, Qasem looked at his weaving room and sighed deeply. The loom that once felt alive to him now seemed like a dead piece of wood. That evening, Qasim called Fariha and said, "Fariha, I've made up my mind. I'm not gonna weave anymore." Fariha was shocked. "What are you saying? The loom is your life. The blood of our ancestors runs through this work, but you can't survive on just blood." There was deep sorrow in Fariha Qasim's voice. "Maybe Allah doesn't want me to keep doing this work anymore. Sakin might be right. There's no blessing in this business of mine. I've decided I'm gonna start a business. I'll go to a distant city to buy and sell goods." Fariha saw an unfamiliar stubbornness in her husband's eyes. She didn't stop him. Qasim sold his last possessions, even some of Fariha's small wedding jewelry, to gather some money. His plan was to use that money to buy a camel and some spices and cloth. Qasim planned to cross the desert, go to a distant town, and sell the camel. When he reached the animal market, he saw that all the camels were insanely expensive. With the money he had saved, getting a good camel was impossible. While wandering around, he noticed a skinny, old camel standing alone in a corner of the market. The camel's body was covered with old scars, and it was skinny to the bone, but there was something strange and captivating in its eyes. It was as if the camel, like Qasim, had a fighting spirit. The broker said, "This camel is no good, it's sick and can't carry much weight." But Qasim looked into the camel's eyes and felt a deep connection. He felt it. He said, "This is the one I'll take." It would be called Sabur, because both of them were now being tested for patience. Qasim bought a camel cheaply and went back home. Fariha was worried when she saw the camel, but seeing Qasim's enthusiasm, she also put her trust in God. Qasim took great care feeding Sabur and gently stroked its body. He started to believe that Sabur would change his luck. Preparations were done. Qasim spent all his savings to buy some high-quality clothes and fragrant spices. His goal was the Aqaba market. If he could reach there, he would get double the price for these goods. At farewell time, Fariha's eyes were brimming with tears. Qasim kissed her forehead and said, "Don't worry, I've got Sabur with me, and Allah is with us too. I'll come back, inshallah. We'll come back with better days." Before dawn broke, Qasim set off on the journey. Sabur carried the luggage on his back, and Qasim held the rope. The desert path was strange and tough. During the day, the sun felt like a burning ball of fire, and at night, the cold was bone-chilling. The first few days went okay. Qasim talked to Sabur, feeling like the camel understood every word. Sabur moved slowly but never stopped. Between them, there was a bond, a deep friendship developed. Qasim thought maybe Sakin was wrong. My fate is in my own hands, and Sabur is the vehicle for that. But on the fourth day, nature showed its fierce face. The air had been stagnant since morning. Around noon, a dark red glow appeared on the horizon. Experienced travelers know this isn't just any cloud. It's a samum, the deadly wind of the desert. Qasim got scared. He tried to push Sabur to move faster, but the weak camel couldn't keep going. Suddenly, with a loud roar, the whole place shook. In an instant, a sandstorm kicked up, blurring the sky and ground into one. It happened. The grains of sand started scratching Qasim's skin like tiny needles. Sabur sat down, exhausted. Qasim shouted and tried to make the camel sit down so they could take shelter behind it. Sabur used his last bit of strength to sit down, but the wind was fierce. A huge blast of sand hit Sabur hard. The weak camel lost its balance and tumbled down into a deep pit along with the goods. "No!" Sabur and Qasim wanted to run like crazy, but the wind blew them away too, forcing them to take shelter behind some rocks. The storm raged on for a long time. Hours passed. Qasim buried his face in the rocky crevice and kept repeating Allah's name. When the storm finally stopped, evening had fallen. Qasim walked carefully to the edge of the cliff. What he saw made his heart stop. Sabur was half buried under the sand. His body was lifeless. All the goods tied on Sabur's back, Qasim's last hope in life, were lost in the deep sand. Qasim ran over and hugged Sabur's neck. The camel was gone. He screamed and cried out, "Oh Allah, why? I never took the wrong path.
I just wanted to work hard. Why did my sabur have to leave me? Why did you take away my last bit of hope?" In the silence of the desert, her cries went unheard. It felt like the wind was whispering, "Be patient, be patient." When Qasim returned to the village, he was like a walking corpse. His clothes were torn, his lips split, and his feet were covered in blood and wounds. All he held was Sabur's necklace. Right at the village entrance, he ran into Sakin, who was taking care of his newly bought horse. Seeing Qasim like that, Sakin burst out laughing. Then he said to the others, Look, our big businessman is back. Didn't I tell you so? There's no ghee, just that constant knocking sound. Qasim, you're cursed by God, otherwise you wouldn't be in this mess." Qasim didn't say a word. He just hung his head and started walking toward his house. Sakin's poisonous words were still ringing in his ears. Cursed by God. Fariha was startled to see her husband, but she didn't ask anything. Just seeing the rope in Qasim's hand, she understood everything. Qasim sat down at Fariha's feet and started crying like a child. "I've lost everything, Fariha. No patience left, no capital. I'm helpless." Fariha gently stroked her husband's head and said, I'm here. I'm present, and we have faith. We're not hopeless. Whatever Allah has taken from us, there's definitely some good in it that we just can't see right now." But Qasim's mind wouldn't accept that. He shut himself inside. Ashamed, he didn't want to go outside anymore. The villagers gossiped about him. Some felt sorry for him, while others mocked him like Sakin. Driven by the need to survive, Qasim went to the city and took up work as a porter. The hands that used to do delicate thread work now had to carry heavy sacks of stone. His fingers grew tough, his back ached. Every day during breaks from work, he looked up at the sky. He used to look up and think, "Boss, was this really your plan?" Still, every time he prayed, he'd say, "Alhamdulillah." It was just a habit on his tongue, but deep down he was bleeding inside. A couple of months later, something strange happened. Suddenly, a weird silence fell on Jabal al-Amal and the nearby villages. The birds stopped singing. The air grew heavy with a rotten smell. Then an unknown epidemic started. The locals called it the Black Fever. This disease spread like wildfire, especially in the weavers' neighborhood. That's because the weaving huts were closed off and the weavers sat really close to each other while working. At first, the workers at Sakin's factory got sick. Then, one after another, almost everyone in the village caught the fever. Fear of death took over the whole community. People stopped leaving their homes. Even Sakin, who used to boast about his protective walls and wealth, wasn't spared. The black marks showed up on his body too. He started rambling in a high fever. All his piles of money and the expensive healers and quacks didn't help at all. His wife and kids were too scared to go near him. The same Sakin who once ruled over Qasim was now alone in his mansion, standing at death's door. Meanwhile, Qasim was perfectly healthy. For months, he worked as a laborer under the open sky outside the weaving village. He never went to the crowded village market or the closed weaving sheds. This tough, hard-working life unknowingly kept him safe from that terrible contagious disease. His hard work made his body even more resistant to illness. When the pandemic started to ease a bit, the village economy took a big hit. The entire industry came to a complete halt. Yet, a grand royal festival was just around the corner. Big traders from the capital came to the village looking for cloth. They urgently needed a large amount of high-quality fabric. They went to Sakin's house, but Sakin got it. Most of the weavers are either dead or too weak to weave anymore. The traders were getting desperate in the crowd. Then the oldest man in the village said, "There's a guy named Qasim bin Fahad. He used to be the best weaver back in the day. Now he's working at the docks, but he's still healthy." The traders went to Qasim's run-down, broken-down hut. They told him, "We don't have much time. Can you weave cloth for us? We'll pay you double or even triple." Qasim looked at them, surprised. The dusty old loom in the corner of his room seemed to be calling out to him. He smiled while looking at it.
Kashim gently touched his old loom with his hand. As he dusted it off, the familiar wood appeared. He told the traders, "I can do it, but on one condition. I need an advance payment so I can buy the best threads." The traders agreed. Kashim sat down in front of his loom again. After a couple of months, the familiar clacking sound filled his room. This time, his weaving carried a new strength, the strength of pain, loss, and the joy of getting back. Kashim worked day and night. Fariha helped him. When they handed over the clothes to the merchants, who were stunned. They hadn't seen anything like this in the past 10 years. They gave Kashim more gold coins than they had promised and offered him a permanent position as a weaver in the royal court. Qasim's luck changed. He was now the richest and most respected person in the village. But his lifestyle didn't change at all. He still wore simple clothes and kept giving to charity like before. Meanwhile, after a long treatment, Sakin survived, but his body was broken. All his savings went towards the medical bills. He's already spent everything. His business is ruined. Now he's hopeless, sick, and all alone. One morning, Qasim was standing by the new well he had dug, giving water to people. Just then, he saw a frail old man leaning on a cane making his way toward him. As he got closer, Qasim recognized him. It was Sakin. But today, Sakin's eyes didn't have that arrogant look anymore. Instead, there was deep shame and regret. He tried to sit down at Qasim's feet, but Qasim stopped him. With a voice choked with tears, Sakin said, "Brother Qasim, please forgive me. I was blind. I thought I was so smart. Wealth is everything. But look at me today. I'm just a beggar on the street. And you, Allah, has lifted you up somewhere." Qasim held Sakin tight and said, "There's nothing to apologize for. We're all servants of Allah." Sakin said, "But there's one thing I don't get, Qasim. You lost Sabur."
Lost everything, yet you never gave up. Today, you're successful. But what if Sabur hadn't died that day? Qasim laughed, tears filling his eyes. He looked up at the sky and said, "Sakin, I thought a lot last night. What if my camel Sabur hadn't died in that desert storm? What if I had taken my goods to that city? If I had arrived, I probably would have kept running the business and wouldn't have gone back to the textile industry. I'd be living outside the village. Maybe I would have caught the pandemic in some weaving workshop and died. Or I'd be so busy with the business that when the merchants came today, I wouldn't even be here." Qasim sighed deeply and said, "My camel, Sabur, saved my life. It kept me away from the weaving trade right when death was around, and it left me broke back in the village. It brought it back so that I could take charge again at the right time. Allah took a little from me to give me everything." Sakin stared at Qasim in surprise. He mumbled, "Really, Qasim? Your faith is your true wealth." Qasim didn't abandon Sakin. He put him in charge of the business accounts. Though Sakin was physically weak, he was no fool. The sound of weaving returned to Alok's village, but this time it was mixed with a tune of gratitude. Qasim bin Fahad's story in the desert. The story spread like the wind over the sand, teaching people that no wound in life is truly a loss if you have unwavering faith in Allah behind it. What people lose is actually for their own good, and what they gain is the result of their patience. Qasim clenched his teeth until the very end of his life, and he had written on the wall of his house in big letters, "Patience is a bitter tree, but its fruit is sweeter than honey." Friends, we ask Allah for a lot and hope for many things, but Allah don't always give. We always have to remember that whatever Allah gives us or doesn't give us, it's definitely for our own good. Surely, whatever Allah does is for the best. We just need to be patient all the time. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. If you like the videos on Ashraf Voice Bangla channel, please make sure to like the video. Share the video to help spread Islam. Don't forget to tell us in the comments where you're watching the video from, and also let us know what lessons you've learned from today's story. To get new Islamic stories, subscribe.